Welcome everyone. It is Monday, August 25th. It is a special meeting of council. The purpose of this workshop is to discuss Mount Bridges wastewater treatment facility. Roll call, both councillors Brennan and Kennis are absent with notice. They're both on their way home from vacation. And Deputy Mayor McGuire is joining us via Zoom. Welcome, Mike. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Motion to approve the agenda for this evening's meeting. Councillor Palmer, second by Councillor Hippel. All in favor? That motion carries. In terms of delegations, there was two tonight. One, Berta Kritschker, was representing the Powell Group. She's indicated she's not here this evening. And representative from River Birch Global Water. Kevin, are you here? I may butcher your last name and I'll apologize up front. So, Bobechko. So thank you. So you're here, you can answer questions as needed, correct? So, yep, so welcome. We'll dive right into it, folks. We'll go to the report from Director Ortiz. I did talk to Director Ortiz and answer questions throughout. We will go through his slide presentation, so. Yeah, go ahead.
Are we doing a change to the agenda? Do we have to do the delegations before reports, or are we changing that so we do the order differently?
No, I'm sorry, there aren't any real delegations. They're just, as you mentioned, right? Kevin, you're available here for questions, so there's no actual, and the Powell Group had indicated that too, Greg. They're just here to answer questions as necessary, so. And I'll ask Kevin if you need to answer, go up to the microphone, okay? So, I'm just gonna.
No, you can do that after.
Okay, so Director Ortiz, again, folks, ask questions as necessary. Yeah. Floor is yours, Director.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity today to spend time with Council and go over the Mount Bridges wastewater program and all the work that we've been doing at the treatment plant. I'd like to start by saying that we may not have all of the answers today. The wastewater program, it really is a complex program and a long-standing issue. There's a lot of work to be done, and it's a lot more than what's going on just at the treatment plant. So the purpose of today is to put everything on the table and highlight the work that's been done to date, the status of the plant, results of the process review and optimization study, and look forward to what the next steps are for Mount Bridges. I'm joined today by Bram Bontier of SEMA Plus, who will be presenting the results of the process review, and we also have John Terrell of R.V. Anderson and Kevin Bobechko of River Birch. I got that right. Who will be available to answer questions. So I'd like to thank Bram, John, and Kevin for all their support on the project to date. We certainly can't do it alone, and we rely heavily on the experience of and expertise of our various partners in the industry, from consultant engineers to suppliers and service providers. And it's these strong relationships that will enable us to deliver results and act on the long-term vision of Mount Bridges. I've got a fair bit of content to go through, so I'm going to make sure that we get through this quickly. I have a couple of spots in the presentation where I'll be asking for questions. I'll ask that we can try and hold off on questions until then, write them down, and I promise we'll get to it either at question period or in the end. So with that, I think I'll get started. Okay, we'll try again. So, as mentioned, we're going to be going through the history of the plant, current operating conditions, and some challenges facing Mount Bridges as a whole. We'll then go over the wastewater program and how the environmental assessment process fits in. SEMA will be presenting results of the process review, and we'll review several options going forward and highlight next steps. By no means is this an exhaustive list of items that we can be discussing today, but we'll touch on a number of topics, and hopefully we'll answer some questions and clear up some any confusion that might exist. So the history of the plant goes back all the way to the early 90s. At that time, no treatment plant existed and all properties were on septic. In 1992, the MECP, the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change at the time, recommended Mount Bridges complete an area service plan, effectively recommending a new treatment plant for the municipality. In 1993, the MECP imposed a development freeze. At this time, the first EA for the new treatment plant was started. 3 years later, in 1996, the EA was completed and recommended construction of a new treatment facility to be located at the Caradoc landfill property. Progress appears to have slowed at that time with talks of amalgamation, and there wasn't much progress until about 2000, when the treatment plant was formally put on pause by council with the intention of looking into various ways of funding the project to minimize the financial burden on the municipality. Progress again appeared to slow until about 2004, when a feasibility study is completed and the EA was updated. Again, a new treatment plant was supported at the Caradoc landfill site. So fast forward to 2009, and the municipality is successful in a $5.6 million grant to construct a new treatment plant with the requirement that it needs to be completed by 2011. A contract was awarded to both BM Ross and Napier Reed for development. In 2011, the original certificate of approval was issued. This is now known as an environmental compliance approval. And finally, in 2012, the treatment plant is constructed and put into operation. For the next 4 or 5 years, the plant is actually operating generally in compliance. It has periodic issues regarding to solids, but for the most part is able to meet effluent limits. Then starting in 2018, the plant begins to show signs of real strain with respect to ammonia removal. And at this time, RVA is brought online to provide technical support. In 2020, we experienced a major failure of one of the RBCs, and the facility was only able to operate with one RBC in operation for about 8 weeks. During this time, the plant is out of compliance, and in 2020, we also initiated the conceptual design for an equalization tank. 2 years later, the detailed design for the headworks and extended aeration is started, and around the same time, the EQ tank ECA is submitted. In 2023, the extended aeration ECA is submitted, and in late 2023, the EQ tank ECA is approved. Then early last year, the EQ tank is actually tendered and awarded. Later in that year, in August, we received ECA approval for the headworks and extended aeration project. And throughout this time, the design of headworks and extended aeration has been progressing well, and the water wastewater master plan was ongoing. Later in the year, it was decided to pause the installation of the EQ tank, given the impending timeline of the extended aeration upgrades. So I'd like to touch on a couple of points here for approval dates. So approvals obviously play a key role in any project, and you can see the length, the duration from ECA submission to MECP approval. For the EQ tank, originally it was about 20 months. For the aeration tank conversion to extended air, it was also 20 months. And earlier this month, we received the noise and air ECA for the plant, and that had originally been submitted in April of 2024, so about a 17-month approval timeline. A number of activities have been completed or are still ongoing this year as well. RBC 1 had a shaft failure and an emergency repair earlier this year. We've completed the process review and optimization, and CEMA Plus will be presenting that later today. And we've recently wrapped up the detailed design for the extended aeration conversion, and we've also issued the EA RFP, so request for a proposal to initiate the Mount Bridges wastewater servicing EA for future growth. A few things that are still ongoing include getting direction from council for our approach going forward, and then tendering that approach. We do need to respond to the MECP. We are in the process of continuing to get construction permits for extended aeration. We need to award the RFP for the EA, We're currently working on a water and wastewater servicing allocation policy. This is going to help us determine how and when we allocate wastewater capacity to developments. And we're in the process, we're continuing stream and landfill leachate testing. So we're going to look at current operating conditions of the plant right now. So going back to 2022, we can see that nitrogen results from the plant are exceeding limits. The thick red line is the limit. There's a different limit for summer and then in the winter. And you can see from 2022 we are, other than a few months in the summertime, we're generally not in compliance throughout the year. So in summary, the plant is unable to meet and maintain compliance, particularly in cold weather. We have experienced several significant failures of the RBC where one train is taken offline for an extended period of time. And during that time, the plant is unable to meet compliance. Most recently, RBC1 had a failure of its shaft and was offline for several months. Each time one of the RBCs is taken offline, it can take weeks or even months to get it back to its original operating condition. The plant continues to see increasing flow rates as new development is brought online. The timing of additional flow may change depending on market fundamentals and when new housing is built, but the direction is clear and the demand for wastewater capacity is increasing. Finally, the Ministry of the Environment and Conservation Parks, the MECP, they're very much aware of the plant's status and has been working with the municipality for several years on plans to bring the plant back into compliance. The municipality received a letter from the MECP earlier this year requesting confirmation from the municipality on its approach on what we're going to do to bring the plant into compliance. We've requested an extension and we must reply by the end of this week, August the 29th. I have a small break here for questions if we wanted to get started on a couple questions on the topics so far.
You can grab your breath. Any questions? Okay. Oh, Sandy. Sorry, Councillor Hippel.
Sorry, through yourself to Director Ortiz. So by the end of this week, they need an answer to what our fix is going to be, or long-term, or what exactly are they looking for in terms of an answer?
Director Ortiz.
Thank you. Yeah, through the chair. The MECP is looking for our approach going forward, both in terms of bringing the plant into compliance today and what long-term plans we have in place in order for future growth. That would be the environmental assessment. If we do have an opportunity to request an additional extension for a week or two to allow additional discussion from council, but we will have to provide the MECP with our approach very shortly.
And just a note, this is a workshop, so we can dispense with the formalities. You can just answer the question and just ask the question.
Oh.
Councillor Wilsey.
We actually have one of the experts who actually did that work on the RBCs here with us today. I feel we were just talking about the existing condition of the plant, and then there was a two-phase approach where one was just more repairs to get us closer to compliance. Could we maybe hear from, sorry, I have to scroll, from Kevin and about the study that he did and what his phase one of this thing might look like, just to, not to make any decisions on, just to educate us a little bit more over how his phase one might address some of the points that are up on this slide.
Yeah, sure. I just wonder, and I'm okay with more about the timing, because I'd certainly like to hear from the gentleman too, so why don't we get through this and then get to the point, but we will. I think we should hear from him. I'm agreeing with you, Councillor.
The only reason I brought it now is because we're talking about current status before we go on to next steps.
Okay,
I think
sure.
that's maybe more applicable to current status.
Go ahead, ask your question, Councillor.
So Kevin, this question would be for you. Just with what we've got, with your study that you've done over the last few months, you've been working with our staff, with this issue about being unable to maintain compliance or the historical repairs, did you see anything with either our operations or things that you would recommend we could look at to be able to maintain compliance or at least become closer to compliance to get us through to a point where we could maybe start our EA and just maybe limp along until we actually find out what our final solution is? I know there's a couple options in your report, so I don't want to go too much into that. I feel he'd do a better job than I would. But just with what we have on here with maintaining compliance, if there's a way we could change our processes to avoid some of the repairs, and I guess I'm going on too long rambling, so maybe answer all of those points, but just briefly so that we can just have a little bit of more thoughtful discussion.
Okay, well, some of this will actually come up later in Mark's presentation as well. But in general, the operational, when we came into this, we looked at the operations and we looked at also the structural, and it became very clear that there were some structural deficiencies or design deficiencies in the plan, which means that no operational adjustments could actually achieve compliance. It would have to be at least a minimal amount of structural. Okay, so that's what we were brought in for that, and we, as I said, we very quickly found that there were some issues. So it was far more than just a structural, far more than just operational. And actually, what I'll do, just a quick introduction. What we did was just provide a cheap solution, if you should choose that, depending on your timelines, and that's up to council's decision. But this is simply an alternative that if you need something now, this is, as I said, we presented alternatives to that.
Okay, does that, go ahead, Councillor.
Just one quick follow. That got to the compliance part, but on the other ones, just quickly, with looking at the operations, typically with an RBC, because I know they do run in other places in Ontario where they don't seem to have failures the way we do. Are there things we could do to say avoid future catastrophic failures, at least in the short to medium term? Were there different operational things that, without even affecting the compliance, but just to reduce breakdowns, were there things like that you saw we could improve to make these systems more reliable for the next, 2 to 3 years?
Yes, there are, but they still require at least a minimal amount of structural structural changes, some piping changes, just routing where things come in and out of the RBC. Essentially, what's happening is it was being short-circuited. The sewage coming in was being short-circuited, and the organics were not being removed before they entered the treatment plant. So that's what requires a little bit of, it requires some structural change, and that should really, if you're going to be operating them for a number of years, at least as a minimum, some of these things should be considered.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. So we'll just go back. I just wanted to know the time frame where you talk about from 96.
Yes, Councillor.
Oh, the mic. Yeah, sorry, so everyone in the world can hear. Time frame from 96 to 2001, or when you said it takes a break, is that not when they were dealing with the closure of the dump, which is located on the same site?
I think the dump closure or the landfill closure was a little bit later, like toward the tail end of that. I think that pause was more attributed to impending amalgamation at that time.
Thanks. So then, I was going to say with the RBC, the shaft failure and the emergency repair, that was actually noted by River Birch in 2023 when they went in and did a report for us that we didn't accept, and we did not bring in their delegation, whether that was the CEO or the mayor at the time, but they weren't allowed to speak on that. Otherwise, that's noted in their report to be fixed. So I guess I bring some of this stuff out here. The other thing is I checked the MECP website right before I walked in, and it does not say we're approved for anything on it. So if we did end up getting the noise and air approval, which I thought I saw at the bottom of that letter that it was approved by that division and they were kicking it up to their director for approval. But as of whatever time I walked in the door, we were not on the approval. So if you look it up on the MECP website, it does not say we are approved for noise and air or any of that approval. There's nothing.
Director, I'm gonna let you talk to that one.
Yeah, thank you. We do have the approved ECA for noise and air. I can share that. I'm not sure the timelines for when it gets posted online, but we have an approved, signed off noise and air ECA from the MECB for the odor control unit for the headworks and extended duration facility.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, continue, Director.
Thank you. So we're going to get into some of the challenges that we're currently facing with the plant and with Mount Bridges as a whole. So we did consult a number of different municipalities, and we've received feedback similar to our own with respect to reliability of RBCs. When they work, they work. It's when they have issues, and there can be months or weeks of downtime. An example is like our RBC1 failure earlier this year. So the municipalities we consulted with are generally replacing RBCs with alternative technologies, and they have commented on poor nitrogen removal in cold weather in particular, and having multiple RBCs offline due to maintenance and breakdowns. So in Mount Bridges, there's no redundancy built into the system. So it's we know that it's undersized, as Seema will discuss later. So if an RBC goes down, we lose 50% of our capacity, and there's simply no way that we can meet that flow redundance. It also means that we can't take RBCs offline for an extended period of time for maintenance or cleaning without sacrificing performance. So this is really what it comes down to. The Mount Bridges plant is simply unable to consistently meet compliance limits. And the problem is only getting worse with increasing flow rates. We now know why the plant is unable to meet compliance, and Seema will touch on some of these points later. But the main issue is that we don't have enough RBC media to treat the ammonia coming into the plant. The RBC tanks are simply not big enough. As is, we would need about 4 times the RBC media to meet compliance at the rated capacity. We're also seeing stronger wastewater flows than what the plant was originally designed for. And there are additional issues which contribute to poor performance, including the design issue that Kevin mentioned, and no upstream screening or solids removal, and the fact that we live in Canada and it is cold, very cold for several months of the year. So as I alluded before, Mount Bridges is growing. The plant has approximately 375 cubic meters per day of spare capacity relating to its average flow rate. Now, ensuring Mount Bridges has sufficient wastewater capacity to service growth is clearly a critical priority. If there's any good news, it's that we are not in, I would call it, dire straits just yet. We do have adequate capacity today to service what we've fully committed to. And by moving forward with the wastewater servicing EA, we're working towards building the capacity that Mount Bridges needs to continue growing. The process to build new capacity needs to be started years before the capacity is required. The EA process can take 2 years or more, and design and construction of a project can take another 4 years or longer. So this table is taken straight from the master plan, and you can see that the overall wastewater demand currently outstrips capacity. We'll be looking at how we manage this demand for wastewater treatment as part of the servicing allocation policy that we are developing, but you can see that there's clearly an urgent need for us to act on bringing additional treatment capacity online in the not too distant future.
Can we ask questions like, otherwise we're getting a whole lot of, that's a lot of information to take in.
Sure, I said we could, Councillor.
At this point, I know he wanted to wait until we start,
okay.
but.
Go for it, 'cause I got one too, so you go first and I'll ask.
So I would just say how, at one point you say we're okay with the capacity we have right now with everything going forward. Yeah, you said we're okay with capacity.
No, specifically with what we've fully committed to do. And I do have Jake DeRitter here who can comment on that, but we have several developments that we've fully committed to, and those developments can be serviced today with the current plant at the rated capacity of 825. So that's the big assumption, that we have a plant that is functional, that we have an ECA approval for, and that is in compliance.
That was my point. We have what we need to service what we have right now, right? So if we can get what we have right now running, which we have a group that says we can get you compliant with what your flow is today, and we have a solution to get you 825 for the future, then we'll start our EA and figure out, is this the spot to be? The question here is, we can go through all the numbers, you can sit down and go all through this. Does council want to spend 13 to 16 million dollars to switch and get 825, your same stuff? Because we got to do an EA to increase regardless, right? So if that EA comes back and says, thanks for spending 13 million dollars here, but you can't stay here, where we have a dump, we have a tributary that we don't know how much we can actually put into without possibly hardlining. There's a lot of questions to be answered out of an EA. We can all agree on that? Yes?
I would agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so to do
Can I
it,
suggest, just get, your question, I wanted to answer the same one, Councillor.
well, my point would be, we can go through all of this.
But we need to go through all of this. Council wants to go through.
Do you want to spend 13 million and switch to open aeration, which if you're listening to what is being said and which way you're being shoved, that says which way we're being shoved. Nowhere is it saying we have a presentation that will get us compliant to what our flow is today, and within 7 months, up to 825.
But Councillor, we need to go through the entire presentation.
But
I know
then
you're
just
trying
take
to-
out how these things aren't working, this, that, and the other thing. If we have a solution, we have a solution, right?
We have two solutions.
No,
possible.
your one solution is build a new plant. Your other solution is get the tools and the equipment
I'm
you've
just
already paid
saying
for.
we're
We
just
already
re-
paid for this.
We're just racing ahead, Councillor. Let them go through the presentation, let all the council hear the presentation, and we can, it's important that everybody, including the public, hear the entire presentation and let us make up our
But
vote.
remember, 3 years ago, we were presented the exact same option that River Birch gave us, and you kicked it down the road and didn't give them a delegation.
No,
Now
that's
we're
not-
3
that's not-
years down the road.
Councillor, that is
Same-
incorrect.
Well, who kicked it down the road then?
Councillor,
Who kicked it down?
Councillor Pammer has a question, I believe.
I don't have a question, just a comment that I do want to hear. We've been getting bits, it feels like, for this, and I'm really looking forward to this evening and getting a cohesive report. I appreciate where you're taking us so far in the timeline. I do want to hear from River Birch and the other consultants so I can have all the information all delivered at the same time, and then we can ask questions, think about it. It is of value to me, Councillor Derbyshire.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Director Ortiz, please continue.
Thank you. So going forward, the graph here shows where the plant currently is in terms of capacity. This is the average daily flow rate that the plant's receiving. You can see it's increasing from 2022. We're not quite at 450 to date, but that's the number we're using as a current benchmark for today's capacity. But the trend is clear, and we need more additional capacity, and it's going up. We're going to shift gears a little bit here and start talking about connecting existing unserviced properties in Mount Bridges. So in addition to growth, there's in demand, there's about 700 units in Mount Bridges which are not currently connected to the wastewater system. It works out to about 525 cubic meters per day of additional flow that will need to be treated. This is a huge undertaking, and it's going to be it will need to be completed street by street, typically with design in year 1, followed by construction in year 2. The exact schedule is going to be informed by the flow rates coming into the facility and when new treatment capacity comes online. The EA is going to need to be completed first, and we'll need to have clear direction of when a new capacity is going to be brought online before we start connecting existing homes. Importantly, we'll need to develop a plan and confirm long-term funding. This could be a 20-year project, and we'll need to leverage multi-year planning, multi-year budgeting, and a municipal-wide debt servicing strategy in order to execute. This is a snapshot of the homes or the streets in Mount Bridges, which will need to be connected to wastewater servicing. A key aspect of the project is that each street is going to be fully reconstructed and urbanized. So this will be with proper storm sewers, curbs, sidewalks, and new water mains where required. This is a standard road allowance that we will be implementing where possible. In total, about 11.6 kilometers of sanitary sewer will be required. The total program is estimated to cost about $63 million. 20% $25 million of this would be funded through water wastewater rates, and $38 million would be required to be funded through the roads program. We'll be developing a detailed plan in parallel with the Mount Bridges EA in 2026 and 2027. This work is going to need to be aligned closely with the roads capital plan, as it represents a significant investment that's going to be that will need to be coordinated with the road program and adequately funded. So again, multi-year budgeting, strategic usage of debt is going to be key for successful execution. So we have experienced some opposition from further development of the existing site from several landowners. A few points have been noted, including opposition to aeration, concern about the existing landfill, and impacts from increased wastewater capacity. The municipality has historically sampled groundwater and stream water in monitoring wells and a stream located on a neighboring property. The neighboring property owners have recently indicated that the municipality is no longer permitted entry to their properties, and as a result, we're going to need to revise our sampling monitoring plan and restrict it to municipal property. So, final challenge I'd like to touch on is that we're facing is the timing and the recent letter from the MECP. So there's a long history of non-compliance, and the MECP has been working with the municipality for several years to get the plant back into compliance. With new capacity 6 years out or more, the MECP has indicated that it expects the municipality to take all appropriate steps needed to ensure compliance. The current plan for the headworks and extended duration has an ECA that's approved by the MECP, and it's been demonstrated to meet effluent limits. We now need to respond to the MECP with the municipality's approach. The backdrop here is that the risk of MECP intervention continues to increase. So intervention could come by the way of orders, fines that could range in the order of tens of thousands of dollars per day. And intervention could come at any time. The real risk here, though, may be the fact that the MECP could place restrictions on the plant's current ECA and its rated capacity. So to Councillor Dershire's point, we have a plant that's rated at 825. We need to make sure that we can treat 825 cubic meters per day. If that changes, it could effectively impact any development going forward and potentially any building going forward.
Can I ask a question just on that last point? I don't know if Councilor Beaver should have said one. So the last point, restrictions on plants ECA rated capacity. So we're rated at 825, whatever the current number we have now, I think 400, whatever it is. Could the ministry say you can't hook up any new houses? Is that correct? Is that what you're saying, Director?
I'm saying that our plant, the rated capacity is up here, and at any time, yes, the MECP could place restrictions on our plant, effectively reducing our wastewater capacity.
Okay. And yes, my last question.
Building permits.
My last question is for Jake. We do have one subdivision that has already, I can't remember the number, I know it's in here, but the number of subdivisions who have been approved to go ahead with no conditions. Is that just Westdale Phase 1, I believe? I'm doing this, I know it's in here, Jake, I just say it.
We have the Westdale site and the Sifton site, the two right beside each other on Parkhouse Drive there.
So they've been granted outlet?
Those are the ones that are approved back in 2017.
Approved, okay. Okay, thank you. Yep, Councilor Derbyshire.
So what would be the time frame then to switch to open aeration? And by the time we do that, how many years, months, whatever, are we going to be uncompliant with the system down there right now? Because we can't just build a new plant tomorrow, right? There's a process that's gonna take place, so what are we gonna do in the meantime that doesn't get all this horrible, big, bad stuff coming down on us?
In short, we're effectively ready to tender now, and it would probably take in the order of 14 to 18 months to tender and construct the headworks and extended air conversion.
Sorry, Councilor Wilsey.
On this, just Couple questions. When we're changing, when we go from one to the other, I know we're using the same tanks. We're gonna convert our tanks, I think, for the new generation. At least that's my understanding. That might not be right, but that's my understanding. When we do that, if we're going to extended aeration, I thought that meant that we had to put lines under the ground and go up, because we're currently in Strathroy have an aerated lagoon, which has pipes that float on top and go down. So extended aeration is different, where the pipes come through and come up through the bottom, if I'm correct. If that's the case, then we have no tanks, because I'll have to rip those tanks out, or at least replace the bottoms of them. When that's happening, we have nowhere for all the sewage to go. So what do we do during that 13 to 18 months when we're updating our tanks from RBCs to extended aeration and installing those lines, but those tanks aren't watertight? Because even if we only have one tank where there's an RBC or something else, we're not able to treat what we have. And then what's the cost together with that? Is that included in that 60 million, the cost to truck all that away?
A little ahead of the curve, but good question.
Yeah, good question. We do have one empty tank that would be staged and constructed first. We do have John Terrell from RVA. I don't want to put him on the spot, but that could be a question that John may be able to provide some input on.
So, but can we answer what we're gonna do for
Your
14
mic-
months?
Sorry, your mic there. Oh,
Can we answer what we're gonna do for 14 months while this thing is constructed, built, shoved around, this, that? Like, we're still gonna be uncompliant and this and that, right? So
So why don't we do this? It's a good question. Why don't we wait till they get talking about that? And John, why don't you wait to the end and you can answer that, right? Let's get through. We'll put it on the list, because that's a good question. Continue, Director.
Wait, hold on.
What?
John's gonna answer?
Well, it's RB, either John or Mark, somebody will answer for it.
But who's answering what we're doing in the meantime when we're designing, building, and constructing this? Are we just gonna run uncompliant and with a broken garbage plant? Is that what we're doing? I've asked 3 times.
Director?
The current plan would be to tender and then proceed with the headworks and extended aeration immediately. The period of time during construction, yeah, we would not be making, we're not proposing to make any changes at this time. There could be some opportunities for some, as Mr. Babeshko mentioned from River Birch, there are some potential changes we can make in terms of process piping that may help, but we're not fully confident of how effective those changes would be.
I am. But those changes he can have done in 3 months, and we can see if we end up compliant, correct or not?
I'll take Kevin's word for that, and yeah, 3 months is for a process change like that.
And the cost of
Maybe
that
possible.
is 70,000 for that, to see if we get compliant in 3 months? No? What's the cost of phase 1? 400,000. So 400,000.
That is more to it than that.
Okay, great. May I ask, we'll let you go just one question, because I kind of, with Councillor Derbyshire, it's ahead of the curve, but if we told the MEC, this is all in the MECP's court, correct? So if we were to approve something, whatever it is, if the MECP knows that we've approved something moving ahead, I'm not gonna use the right verbiage, but are they going to be satisfied with the fact that, yes, we may be out of compliance, but we have a plan to get us back in compliance, an agreed upon plan that is moving forward, whatever that plan is, correct, Director?
Yes, again, I can't speak on behalf of the MECP, but I can say that we have been communicating for years our approach to get the plant back into compliance. And we are currently acting on that approach and that plan. So I don't see any advantage in the MECP changing course and through enforcement processes if we continue on that approach.
Can I ask one more here?
One more, then we go, yeah,
Still
that's
on
fair.
it. Okay, so we were told numerous times, sitting right here in this circle, that the reason we picked not open aeration, but extended aeration, or whatever that tank was to appease the MECP, to make it look like we were still moving forward trying to be compliant.
The equalization tank.
The equalization tank. That was said not only by, not you, but a previous director and also by R.D. Anderson in one of their presentations. Now, the letter that we received from the MECP doesn't say you need to keep doing what you said you were going to do. What it says is, what are you going to do to get compliant? It doesn't say you have to continue on with what your plan was. It says, we see you have nothing in the queue here for approvals to move forward. You've pulled we're not doing the equalization tank. At the point in time when the letter's sent, we're not ready to switch to open aeration. The guy says, Mark Smith says, what is your plan moving forward to get compliant? It doesn't say, we want you to keep going down this path. You need to follow up what you said. It says, what are you doing to get compliant? What we're doing to get compliant is, we're going to have a group fix what we have, and we're going to do a EA and a Schedule C to see if this is where we need to be. That should be enough. And if we do get compliant, then we've saved ourselves $13 million. If after a bunch of time we can't get compliant, you can still be designing your great plant for when we get approval.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Continue, Director.
Thank you, sorry. Okay, so the MECP, they've requested a written response simply to indicate our approach to achieve compliance. So kind of following on Councillor Berkshire's point, the MECP wants commitment that we are actively working on achieving compliance with the plant and bringing the plant into compliance. I will note that any changes do need to have ECA approval if we're making large changes to the plant. And we have ECA approval for the approach that we committed to and communicated several years ago, and that's why we're here today. So if we were to change that approach, we would have to go back to through the approval process and get approvals, any necessary approvals from the MECP.
Look, we're here today, he sent a letter saying, you backed out of the open aeration, and obviously we didn't have approval. They wanted to know, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So to say we had approval, if we had approval, they would say, oh, well, these guys are still gonna move forward with their open aeration, extended aeration. Like, the problem is they have nothing to say. We have nothing telling them what we're doing.
Go ahead, Director, then.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm fully following, but we have to provide, you're right, we have to provide a clear indication of what we're doing to the MECP. That's what they've asked for.
Right. Which means we don't have a clear path to where we're going, but what you're saying is, we have a clear path, it's already laid out, and we have approval for it. Then why would they send a letter?
So I'm gonna weigh in and help you, Director. Is one of the issues not the fact we told them what we were going to do? We told them that we were gonna do two things, and they haven't seen one of those things happening yet. Is that the crux of the matter with the ministry? We said we were gonna do something, and we haven't done it, and they're asking us to do it.
Yeah, they are looking for action and commitment from council on this, and yeah.
So proceed.
Can I help you out on that?
No, we do.
On the MECP website, it said we had approval for the equalization tank.
And we have approval.
It was there. It never said we had approval for extended aeration. That's why we received the letter, because there's not approval for any of this. Now, I know everybody's gonna sigh and get mad, but these are the details that we fought about for 3 years. You have a group of people that said, give us 3 months, we'll get your place compliant. We've said no.
Okay, let's let the director continue with, because let's get
So
all the.
you want to spend $16 million?
I haven't-
That's what it comes down to.
Counselor, let's hear all of let council
If
hear.
somebody said they can fix your vehicle for $100 and it'll
Counselor,
take you a week, and
can
you
we
decide, no, I
interrupt?
want to buy a new one. But this is what it all comes down to every time. We're going to go through, you're going to get a whole pile of crap. What it comes down to is, do you want to
It's
spend
not.
16 million? Or do you want to get it, see if we can get it fixed?
We haven't made a thing yet, so Councilor Falcon, we need to move on with this.
My interpretation of the letter from the ministry was that you said you had a plan, but you haven't acted on anything yet, and it appears like you're waffling on it. And because of the time frames and the time lengths that it takes to get stuff into compliance, for us to change direction would mean an awful long period of not being in compliance again. That was my interpretation of the letter.
And the only body that really knows interpretation is the ministry.
What direction did we
Okay.
switch though?
We're gonna move on,
Well, what
Counselor.
direction did we switch that takes so long?
Okay.
No, but we make statements like that. We switch directions that take so long. What did we switch to?
We haven't moved on anything.
We haven't switched anything, right?
We haven't.
So
moved on
how is that statement true?
Okay, Counselor, we're gonna move on.
But this is how we end up lost in the
Counselor,
smoke and the debris and the bullshit.
We're moving on, okay, and watch the language. We're here, everybody's here to listen to the presentation, so Director, please proceed.
Okay, so we're gonna touch on the overall, the larger picture here a little bit for Mount Bridges and look at the wastewater program. We've separated things into 3 different categories of immediate, short-term, and long-term challenges. The immediate challenge is that the plant currently can't meet effluent limits. It's been an issue for some time, and we're facing clear expectations from the MECP to bring the plant in compliance. We've previously set out the approach to address the issue of non-compliance through upgrades to the Mount Bridges plant, including construction of the headworks and converting the process to extended air. And again, the goal is to restore capacity to 825 cubic meters per day, the rated capacity, the current rated capacity of the plant. In the short term, we have growth which outstrips capacity, and we also have about 700 homes in Mount Bridges to connect. The settlement boundary is also being evaluated this time through the planning process. We are addressing the issue of growth and the need for new capacity through the wastewater servicing EA. So this study will identify the preferred option for increasing wastewater treatment capacity beyond the rated capacity of 825. Now this assumes that it assumes that the existing plant is able to meet compliance. As mentioned before, we also need to develop a plan to connect unserviced homes, undertake a inflow and infiltration study to minimize the amount of flow coming into the plant, and develop a debt utilization strategy to ensure the program is fully funded and sustainable. Several long-term challenges include increasing growth forecasts, uncertainty around long-term projections, and increasing asset age and asset management costs. These longer-term issues are generally addressed through the master plan process and rate study update, which are completed every 5 years, and through asset management plan updates.
Questions?
No, just a technical issues here.
Okay.
It's a sign. So, yeah, let's answer a question or two while we're at it.
Yeah, go ahead, if you've got a question, go ahead, ask.
So when it comes to the EA then, which we need to expand here, basically what we're saying is if we convert this plant for the 825, we are making a commitment to stay in this area or on this property with an investment of that kind of money into this place. So, again, I just want to reiterate, the EA is going to take 2 years. Is that what we're told to possibly complete?
An EA of this scale and complexity could be probably about 2 years, yes.
So it's going to take us 2 years to figure out whether we should be here. It's going to take us 14 months possibly to switch to extended aeration, which is going to put them pretty close to, 14 months. There'll be a bit of overlap in this and that. So we might maybe get this thing open and have a few months, and then what happens if we get told this is not where you're going to stay or expand?
So just to be clear on that point, we can be here. The plant is there. We have an approval to be there up to 825 cubic meters per day.
100% agree.
And there's nothing that tells us that we need to move the plant.
I'm not saying that. 100% agree. 825, you're there. But for 825, it's $13 million to get compliant again. That's what I'm saying. So we spend that, we get 825, then they say, you're not going any farther than 825. We haven't, it's a dump site, the effluent the creek can't handle the assimilated capacity test. So unless someone is going to write us a nice guarantee that says, yes, spend your money here and you're going to be good to go, which is what the EA Schedule C is supposed to do, right?
To be fair, that applies to any site and any location that a plant would be constructed, so yes.
100% agree, other than we are trying to build on a dump site with a stream that barely puts out any water. I'm just saying, it was an emergency fix at the start. That's how we ended up with RVCs, and that's how we ended up in a location that we had because we don't have land. I'm not saying anyone did the wrong thing at the time. We used the resources we had. Right now, though, we're not in emergency. We're not stuck. If we can get it fixed for 825 and give us at least 3 to 4 years breathing room to complete this EA, to find out if this is the place to be, then why are we not doing that?
All good points, Councillor, like, we're hearing you, right? Let's let them get through the presentation. I've heard everything you said, and it's in there. And
But every time he starts with the presentation, it counters it counters fixing and being here.
No, let him go through the presentation. Councillor Wilsey.
Being we're on the slide about the update, when this project was presented initially, I remember talking about the headworks building and that both the headworks and that the downstream filtering had been built to be upgraded and have additional capacity in the future. If we decide to go forward with this, is there a chance of changing the equipment or reducing the footprint to maybe reduce the cost? Because if we're building that to do, say, I can't remember the number, it was 2,000 or 3,000 cubic meters per day, which is well beyond 825. Would there be a way to maybe get some savings and go to some smaller equipment out of that 13 million? Maybe we can chop $1 million or $2 million out of that and go down to actually the rated capacity we need until we get the EA. That may be further down if we decide to still do this one, but is that an option in the future, or do we have to stay with what's proposed? Because if I remember right, the headworks I thought were somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 of rated capacity, just so we could expand in the future.
So the headworks building itself, the footprint, it is large enough to accommodate equipment that would enable us to expand to that 2348 number. Again, John may be able to provide some more content on that. There could be some opportunity to save some cost. I don't know if I would suggest it, given the situation that we're in. It would probably be relatively marginal compared to the overall scale of the project. And if we did end up expanding further on the site, at the end of that EA, we would have really wished that we would have that space and that real estate here.
Yeah, please continue, Director.
So the picture here, this is the extended duration project in a nutshell. The primary objective, again, is compliance at the rated capacity of 825 cubic meters per day. There is some flexibility for future expansion, including the revised population forecasts. The proposal maximizes use of existing infrastructure, includes a new headworks facility for screening and grit removal, and converting the 3 existing tanks to extended duration. Also a new sludge holding tank on site. So separate.
Sorry, Greg, I didn't see. Just jump in if I forget, Greg. Just go ahead.
No, and I guess my only question on that previous one, just as a second question, with the conversion from the RBC to the extended duration, is there downtime or time will we be trucking everything? And if we are trucking everything, is that cost already included in our budget? Because if I remember right, when it went down, when that shaft broke last time, we were thousands of dollars per truck, and we'll have to do that for what I believe is the entire capacity of Mount Bridges for this entire construction period. So I just want to get some confirmation on how we're dealing with the effluent and the influent while we're constructing this.
Yeah, I don't believe it will need to be trucking, but I got your note, I wrote it down, so we'll have John from RVA comment on that, maybe next in the question period. So separate from the conversion to extended duration, we do need to undertake Class EA for the increase to wastewater treatment capacity. So EAs are typically required for projects where there can be higher risks of environmental impacts. The process for completing an EA is laid out in the NCEA. It depends on the type of project and the type of schedule. A should note the NCEA process is being reviewed by the province and likely to be replaced by a new process called the Municipal Project Assessment Process. There's a few differences, but for our purposes, there's really no significant impact in how we're going to conduct the Mount Bridges EA. I should note that there is no EA required for the process improvements that we're undertaking now that do not require land acquisition and don't increase the rated capacity. So the headworks and extended aeration, we're able to proceed without an EA. So this is a table of the various schedules for larger projects, and for our purposes, the Mount Bridges EA is going to be a Schedule C, which requires the highest level of consultation through the Class EA process with the public. And there are tables for this in the MCEA document, so it's not just staff deciding. So again, any increases to plant capacity beyond rated capacity requires a Schedule C. And in the future, through the NPAP process, any expansions exceeding 25% will also be subject to the EA Act. This is the overall.
Can I ask a question? Just,
yeah.
Just to piggyback on Councilor Derbyshire said, so the EA process, that's just the process we're undergoing to look at the three options. So that's the 14 months to 2 years, correct? And then the time frame for the ministry approval is on top of that, am I correct? Or putting words
So
in your mouth?
the EA is strictly for expansion to the plant.
Right.
So that's assuming that we have a plant that's currently operational, it's 800, we're at rated capacity, and we need to increase that rated capacity of the plant.
Right.
So that EA will take upwards of 2 years alone.
And then after that, it goes to the ministry for approval, correct?
It goes through public posting and yes, approval process, and then through the design and construction process, which would be upwards of another 4 years.
Right, and that's the point. So it's 2 years for us to do the paperwork, to give the ministry and to go to the public and go. So there's additional time on top of that, correct?
Yes, significant. The whole design process and construction process would have to follow.
Okay, thank you.
So overall, we're looking at 6+ years.
Okay.
At least 6 years, I would say, before we get additional capacity.
Okay, thank you.
So, can I ask with the EA then? So with the EA, we've already done the RFP, we put it out for tender, we're ready to go?
We'll be bringing a report to council on September 2nd to award and proceed with the EA.
So we are ready to go
Ready to go.
with the EA, okay. Just because we're talking an awful lot about it in this report, if we're nowhere near ready to go, then, or if we're headed back out to redo it, then.
So speaking of the EA, I want to touch on some of the scope and the detail of the EA and what's going to be done through that EA process. So it's going to be a fairly comprehensive study and a number of scope items that need to be completed. One of the first things that we're going to need to do is confirm the population projections and what the design capacity is going to be of that expansion. So the master plan noted 2348 from the current 825. As the mayor noted, 3 alternative solutions are going to be evaluated, including expansion to the Mount Bridges plant, construction of a new treatment facility, and pumping to Strathroy. So stakeholder consultation is a cornerstone of the EA process, and we'll be undertaking extensive consultation with First Nations, the public, council, the development community, and review agencies.
Can I just ask, are we able to make changes to this now, or is it's already gone? Because when you look at the pumping back to Strathroy, which was a noble idea, but we're at 60% already down here, right? At Strathroy for capacity. So if we go to try to add Mount Bridges to that, we're gonna have to do an EA to expand that. Even though we are twinning the lagoon, we're not actually increasing capacity. We're just putting redundancy to move it. So if we were to try to take all that from there, would we not then have to perform an EA here? So maybe when we think about the amount of time and energy it's gonna take into looking at pumping it back here, maybe that should just be thrown right out of that deal there, because it's just gonna trigger what has to happen here.
I think the intent of the EA is to go through that process and evaluate the pros and cons of each option. It may well be that there's not as much of an advantage to pump to Strathroy, but for the purpose of the EA, I think it's worth having as one of the options to evaluate.
How much time are they gonna put into it? Like, they're gonna spend months on figuring out how to pump it back here. You know, or like it just, I don't know. When I look at now how it all stacks up and how things work and what triggers, you know, if we hit 80%, that triggers us to start an EA for an expansion. If we're building here and moving here and doing there, that pumping that back there then just accelerates.
So can I suggest a good discussion, we have that on Tuesday night when they bring the tender award to us. I think it's a good discussion to have, so let's have that.
I don't even know if we can change it at this point. I think
Well, that's,
already
we'll
put
ask
it
that
up for,
question, we'll ask that question Tuesday.
So touching on the public consultation piece, there's going to be a number of opportunities for the public to engage, which will be highlighted in a public engagement and communications plan, which will be developed at the beginning of the ECA, of the EA. Consultation will include multiple public consultation centers, presentations to council, individual consultation with stakeholder groups, and engagement through website and social media. A number of supporting studies will also be completed, including a simulative capacity study, a site selection study to identify the potential different locations of a new treatment plant, and other studies including hydraulic analysis, treatment technology evaluation, geotechnical and archaeological. There are a number of key issues that will need to be addressed through the EA. First, the EA is going to evaluate alternatives based on environmental, social, and economic factors. So the exact factors and weightings will be developed in consultation with the public and with council and put into an evaluation matrix. The location of where a new potential treatment plant would be located must be known in order to compare impact and cost. So this may add a significant amount of complexity and cost to the EA, as a new location may require additional studies, including new ACS, new archaeological, and new geotechnical. Cost and financing is going to be a key part of the project. The expansion is going to be one of the largest projects in Strathroy-Caradoc history, and in order for it to be successful, we're going to need to know, fully understand where the funding and financing is going to come from. Funding will come from a combination of water and wastewater rates, development charges, debt financing, and public grants, and there may be additional opportunities for us to look at. At the conclusion of the EA, we're going to review the rate study and update it as needed.
Yep, sorry, Councilor Wilsey.
Just for the cost and financing, just on the EA part of it, it states water and wastewater rates, but if you look at the document that we passed back last fall, it actually has the water and the EA actually at $0 from water and wastewater rates right now. So knowing that we're at $0 from water and wastewater rates towards this EA, our reserves are all overdrawn and fully committed by the water and wastewater rate study as well. Where is the money coming from? Are we changing the capital plan, or what changes are we doing to actually fund this EA that's coming through? Maybe this is a better question for next week, but I'd really like to know where the money's coming from, because it's not in the water and wastewater rates, and the reserves are already spent, and water and wastewater has to be self-funding. So just wondering where it's coming from.
Nope, that's a good question for Tuesday night. I'm sure Director Dakin is going to write it down.
I got a question while we're sitting here.
Yep, go.
Can we get grants for the conversion, or whatever we're gonna call it, to get ourselves up to 820, I guess, to get compliant? Is there any grant money to get compliant, or is grant money just for building more houses and expanding your wastewater treatment plant?
The province is prioritizing growth and development currently. There are grants out there, and we are looking at submitting applications for them for the current project.
For the expansion project,
For the
or
extended aeration.
so for the compliancy project? Okay,
So, Counselor, I have had discussions with Minister Flack about possible grants, that's why I'm focused on capacity, even on this, right? Increase capacity, to the 825, there are homes that could be built, so you're right, that is the focus. You read anything from the province, it's all about growth, it's all about new houses.
right. So let's just be careful when we go down this road, thinking we might get something that we won't, because you then have to have the MACP deem your plant uncompliant and back to 400. So you actually have to fail your plant in order to qualify for your grant.
So, I'm glad you said that, because it took Luke and Bidolph almost 7 years to get their money, so not count our chicken before they hatch. There's always possibilities.
But they expanded.
Yes.
Right, so, I mean, when you look at the 6-year process of building a new place, that fits right in with them taking 7 years to get their money.
Yeah.
Right, so it's not.
So a few other key issues that the EA are going to evaluate include proximity to the landfill, impacts or potential impacts to stream quality, and approaches to construction management. So we're going to be evaluating alternative capital delivery approaches to the typical design build method, including progressive design build. So other approaches may offer benefits in terms of reducing overall project schedule at the expense of increased uncertainty with project costs. So I think that is a good opportunity to take a little break, and any other questions before we hand it over to SEMA?
Councillor Pell.
Yes, thank you. I'm hoping this is the appropriate place to ask. So the River Birch plan that was for the 400,000, does any piece of that require ministry approval?
I would have to double check on what was included in that 400,000, but any new process would require an ECA approval, not an EA, but an ECA approval. I believe the NBBR process that would be added in order to get compliance at 825 would 100% require a ECA approval.
Okay. So when I look at both processes have risk to them. And so I'm going to ask a couple of questions just in regards to the risk management in terms of operating to our current capacity and the rating capacity, which I see as two different things. So we currently have 2 RBC tanks. If we did input the River Birch plan and those 2 RBC tanks became compliant with the current flow, would they be able to handle extra flow to bring us up to the 825, or would that just be fixing the issue to manage the current flow that's coming through?
No, the 2 current RBCs would not have capacity for 825. SEMA will have some comment on that during their presentation coming up, and he can probably answer some more questions on that.
I like the word pivot, and then Councillor Polkman asked a question, I don't want to linger, so would you mind if we just went to the River Birch part now, because it seems there's a question there and it was about the cost, about how that would work, so using chair prerogative, just kind of, we're gonna get there eventually, so I'm gonna ask if we could go through the River Birch, because I didn't want it to linger, the 400,000, or maybe other questions, so since Councillor Polkman brought up, and you're done your part, and then we're going to SEMA, wonder if we could do that, okay, Director?
That's fine by me.
Yep, that's good, so I just wonder, I'm sorry, it's Kevin?
Yes.
Wonder if you could just, if council has questions for you, because I just wonder, I know we're gonna get to it at SEMA, but I think it's important.
Do I need to restate my question?
Yeah, but it's pertinent, I want to tell everybody, it's pertinent to this, the River Birch is done, so if you don't mind, just gonna do a pivot and ask some questions of you.
So the question is if the plan put forward that cost $400,000, assuming that we could do it without ministry approvals, would that bring the RBCs into compliance with just the current flow, or would it be able to manage flow up to the 825 reading capacity?
No, it would not. It would bring it up to current flow and a little bit. It would not bring it up to 825. That requires far more.
All right. As I was reading the report, I kind of got the feeling that even with the current flow and the process that you suggested in place, that the system would work, but kind of just.
Exactly. This is not. I mean, the intent of what we put forward is basically a least cost, almost a stopgap. Okay, to give time to bring it to compliance. Give time. It doesn't replace anything else that was planned. Okay, this is again, this is not a premium solution. This is the budget. This really is the low budget solution, and that's all this was intended to be.
All right. My third question. To me, the downside of RBCs is that when there's an upset, the recovery is really slow. Right. With aeration, if we have an upset, you go to London, you get more bugs and throw it back in the water, and you're back into compliance. But with the RBCs, if you have too much biofilm, you have problems. If you don't have enough biofilm, you have problems. So there's a fine balance there of having it in compliance. And then, as we heard, which is not the RBC's fault, but we only have two systems. So when one goes down for any reason, whether we're doing preventative maintenance or replacing something or something breaks, we will have a compliance issue. Is that correct?
There. Yeah.
Generally, for an extended period of time, yeah, we can't take them down for an extended period of time. There's a biology there that if it dies, it has to regrow, and that takes weeks or months.
So what kinds of things makes the biofilm become either too much or too little? Because that's something I don't understand from the report is, I remember going through with the Strathroy aeration plant that there was discharges from one of the industries that caused an upset, and we would have a bug die, and we'd have a problem, and then eventually we forced that industry to do something on their end that fixed the problem. So can you identify anything that's happening in Mount Bridges that causes either too much biofilm or too little?
I feel like that's an answer best left to the experts in the room.
Well, that was who it was intended for, so.
With Mount Bridges, there's too much organics coming into there's too much organics getting into the actual rotors where the biofilm is. And essentially, in a very simple, it's not 100% technically correct, but what happens is when you get too much BOD, too much organics coming in, it's ended up passing it through the entire system. The bacteria that treat the ammonia are more delicate. When you get what happened when the shaft broke, you put more through the other RBC, so it carried more organics through the second part of the RBC, and it was starting to kill off the nitrifying bacteria. And that it's more fragile. The bacteria that treats or digests the organics is very robust. And again, this is another problem when you have all this, when you have so much food, it just keeps growing and growing and growing as well. So it's all linked together. So the process has to be balanced. And because of the problems, it wasn't because of the piping problems, where the sewage was coming in, didn't have time to settle out. the plant was just overloaded, and that's one of the reasons why it never really worked.
All right, so that brings me to my last questions about the RBCs. So clearly, SEMA identified that there's not enough disc, and in your report, you definitely address the nitrate issue, but you didn't really address the surface issue. So is the I can't think of the word now, the end result that they came to that's saying you need more disk space, is that correct for the current flow that we're getting now?
For the current configuration, yes, but what the intent of what we were doing is removing a lot more of the organics before it ever gets to the discs. So when you do that, then you don't need as much. This is all taken into account. You don't need as much, if you pre-treat it a bit. This is why we propose putting in a settlement tank. A settlement tank is basically like in lieu of headworks. It's a cheap and dirty way of doing it. It's not a great way, but again, as an interim solution, it's one way of doing it. And it removes some of the BOD before it gets to the RBC, and then replumbing the RBC removes even more. So we reduce the organics going into the system, into the beginning of the system, to allow it to rebalance itself.
And just so my own clarity, if you don't mind, that sediment tank, or sorry, what did you call it?
The pre-sediment tank.
Pre-sediment
Yes.
tank. That's something that is currently non-existing and would have to be built.
It would be actually, again, in looking at a low-cost solution, this is a precast tank. It's an absolutely huge precast tank.
Bringing it on a truck.
Okay. Councilor Wilsey.
Just a question for Kevin. Being we already have the ECA approval to put in an equalization tank, and that tank would have all the flows go to that, and then from that go to the RBCs, and we already have approval for that, including the change in plumbing. Could we not use that ECA and use that existing tank so that we can maybe not get approval, but do the pre-sedimentation and the settling in that tank that's already approved by the MECP to be used as the interim solution that we hadn't implemented yet, to actually do most of step 3 and get most of, if not all of what you were planning to do in point C on your report, and maybe use less air so that there's actually more settling in that tank. Could that work? And then we don't have to get approval for that, and then we can take the approval we already have as our interim solution, implement that in a minor modified way, and then go to the RBCs with your changes, and then 350, I'm not worried about the cost, because compared to 13 million, that's definitely reasonable. But we already have MEC approval for the tank, so then that way, your 4-month approval that you have here, we could actually cut that down and maybe do everything quicker. Is that a correct?
Yes, yes, that would effectively do a very similar function. Again, it's also what you want to do next. So what I presented was a 2-stage, existing, and then getting up to 825.
Okay. I just have a question from our deputy mayor. Mike? Can't hear you there, Mike. No. No, can't hear you.
And I'll see if I can get.
There you are, we got you now.
You got me now?
Yeah, you just had to wave your magic hands.
Oh, it works, eh? Wonderful. You can do that more often in council. Thank you. So on the idea of this quick and dirty fix, which really has my interest, would you suggest that we need to get more of, you call it organic, it's the poop. We need to get that down to the bottom in sludge and get rid of it so that we can actually treat the water that's moving through the system and off into, you know, the sand filtration and over the UV stuff and the clarifiers, and then ultimately we disperse it. So really, these systems, all of these systems try to get the organics down to the bottom. Somebody sucks it out, it gets treated somewhere else. We're really trying to deal with the water and cleaning the water, the liquefaction of it. Is that what I'm seeing out of these reports?
Basically, yes. It's,
Okay.
yeah, you settle out, not all organics are settlable. You settle out what you can settle, and then you treat what's remaining. About 30%, roughly 30-odd% is settlable.
Okay, so I think really it functions quite a bit like a septic system, anybody with rural property.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just trying to get my head around it really simplistically, because I think all of the reports, River Birch fantastically stayed with us for 3 years. Thank you for that. And Steve Plus doing a great job, and even where we're getting all the reports and expertise from the panel group, everything is finally coming together so that at least I hope I'm getting a picture of it. So we want to set out more of the organics so that it's not flowing through the system, the RBCs, because then it's getting recirculated back into the RBCs to go through again, because we have that recirculation I see. And then hopefully that helps the plant clarify the liquids, and we come into compliance. Maybe we gain a little bit of capacity.
Correct.
So your suggestion is both doing that in some format and changing the outlets, because the two outlets, the inlets, both inlets are so close together that we're actually flowing some solids into the RBC functioning area. I guess the RBCs are like a basement and a main level. The main level is where the RBCs sit, and then the basement is where the sludge is held. And we're not letting the sludge sit in the bottom and letting the water come up to the main floor to get clean. We're keeping everything moving too quickly there. That's why you want to do the piping and change one of the inlets to the other end, correct?
That's correct.
Great. Starting to come crystal clear for me. So you're suggesting these two things, and it seems SEMA Plus is somewhat in agreement. I think at one point in time they said maybe a little bit optimistic on your part, but I like optimism since we're trying to come up to a solution here. So that's good. I'm going to leave it there for the moment, Your Worship, and turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Okay, I think, did you have one final? And we'll move on.
I did. Just, I wanted to touch on a point that you said, that what you're suggesting is that if we went with your process, this is a short-term fix, and it is not a permanent fix to stay with RBCs, because RBCs eventually will not be able to handle the flow of the Mount Bridges system. So, as you said, this was not what you would see as a permanent solution.
No, absolutely not. This is strictly an interim solution, basically to give you time. If you need time, this is a cheap way of doing it.
And I just have a final question, or maybe it's a comment. All this hinges upon the MBCP saying, you can do this, correct? And that, to me, that's where it's all conjecture until the MBCP would approve it. Right? Yeah, go ahead, Mo. I was just a comment.
Aren't we fixing what we have though? MECP only has to get involved if we begin to change the process, and
No, they would still get involved here.
Yeah,
which is fine, but we're not reinventing the wheel.
no, I'm just saying it's not a slam dunk.
We're essentially trying to buy enough time to do the EA to see if this is the spot where we are going to expand our wastewater treatment plant for the next 50 years of growth in Mount Bridges. That's essentially what we're trying to find, right? Without spending, it will more than likely, like everyone says here, the RBCs will be gone. So if we decide we're going to stay here and we're going to expand to 2,200 whatever meters cubed per day, we're not going to expand RBCs. So then we will take the 16 or 13 million we were going to spend here and you will use it to convert and go to whatever great system we're gonna put in next. Whether it's open aeration, some other thing, some better thing. If that's the location to be, that's the location to be.
Yeah, Councilor Pammer.
So just for my clarification, so the first stage one, you said would take us, you're hoping that would get us compliant at the capacity of 425, correct?
Yes.
That's the goal with stage one.
425 and possibly a little bit more, but yes, basically existing flows.
Okay, existing flows. And then the stage two, the conversion of the empty tank, you're hoping would get us up to be able to handle 825
Yes.
flows. Okay, so no extra capacity, just kind of what we have now. But my question to Jake is, if we went with, what do we do with the committed development that we have? If solution only takes us up to 425, and we have 285 committed, well, how is this, what do we tell them?
That's a question correct for Jake or
Yeah.
Mark.
Yeah, there would be no available capacity at that time for further development. We would need a plant that's functioning and functioning well at the rated capacity.
Okay, just a follow-up?
Yep, just follow.
Okay, so in order to get to 825, which would be, what would we need for the committed development, let's say, how long, sorry, he sat down, but how long would it take to get stage 1 and 2 completed? And is the $1 million price tag, is that for stage 1 and 2, or is that just stage 1?
That stage. Okay,
That's
there wasn't, I actually, there wasn't a revision to some of this that I also submitted. No, one is, it would be first the first stage, and then there would be an additional work to bring it up to a second stage.
So the 1 million is for stage 1?
Is for, no, there's about 400,000 for stage 1,
Okay.
and then another, just round numbers, just say $1 million for stage 2.
Okay.
And there was also another contingency added that, and this addresses some of Siemens' comments, that we didn't have in the draft report, that there is a contingency for adding additional ammonia removal. There would be, and that would provide plenty of ammonia removal, so that wouldn't be an issue. So 825 could be very comfortably handled.
And I'm sorry, and how long before you could do stage 2? Like, what's the process here? I think stage 1 seems to me like it could happen fairly quickly, but stage 2, what sort of time
Stage 2 would take a little bit longer because the approvals would take a little bit. But we're working on another plant, a small plant, and we got very good feedback from ABCP, as long as staying within the existing capacity.
Sorry, can you give me an estimate?
Of time?
Yeah. Like for your work part, I realize you
for
can't.
our work part.
Yeah, I realize you can't, control how long it takes. Somebody else to
Within
do
a
it.
year.
Okay.
I'm being realistic. We could, Jared, we could do it quicker than that, but within a year.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna just, we want to move on from this one because we were scheduled to be 2 hours, but both, everybody's okay. I'm willing to take as long as this takes because this is important. So thanks for the last one, Councilor Pelican, then Councilor Wilsey. Then we'll,
Yeah, it's not for River Birch, so.
okay, that's fine. We'll move on. Did you have one for River Birch, Greg?
Mine was more of the timing of, was more for the director to compare
Okay.
the timing between the two systems, so we could,
Okay.
just while we're on the timing.
Okay, yep. Go ahead, ask away.
My question is not so much on the River Birch, but on the extended duration. If we were to go into construction, that is like that 2-year construction, I think. So if we're looking that the process for River Birch would be get us compliance within, say, 6 months, and then get up to it within, say, a year, and we could do some of the permitting between that. We would be approximately 2 years to do the extended duration changeover, and then we'd have to figure out what we do with compliance, because we would not be in compliance for that whole 2-year period. Just want to make sure my understanding on that's correct. That's maybe it's not 2 years, maybe it's 16 months. I don't know what the extended, but just want to make sure I'm good.
Yeah, we're estimating about 14 to 18 months for construction for the headworks and extended aeration conversion.
But that would be after tendered, and we haven't tendered that yet.
Yeah,
So that's
even
still
when we tender shortly, you're correct, yes.
okay. So 2 years is accurate then, from now.
All right.
Thank you, Kevin.
Just one comment. When I
Yes.
said within a year, that's stage 1 and stage 2 done sequentially. If they're done concurrently, it would be, it would be much shorter than that.
Okay. All right, can we pivot forward, or you have one for River Birch?
No, I don't have one for River Birch, I have one about aeration process.
Okay, did we want to start with the seaman, or did you want to ask?
I would like to ask the question.
Okay, go ahead.
So, as I said, one of the downsides to the RBC is that when one of the biodiscs goes down, we have no redundancy to replace that. So with aeration, how does that work? Because to me, the catastrophic failure is the loss of a blower, because there's not really a whole lot of other mechanical features to it. So is there redundancy built into that system that if a blower went down, there's another blower available to do so?
Yeah, precisely. So typically there's redundancy built into the design so that it's a bit more flexible with breakdowns of equipment.
So there's more stability in the system, should we go with aeration?
I would say yes.
Okay, so the second question I have then is, when I look at the Strathroy aeration, it's a fairly large puddle of water. And when I look at the tanks, I don't see that size. So is there enough size for the water to sit in there long enough for the bugs to do their trick and eat the solids?
Yes, up to the rated capacity 825, there's enough volume and retention time and space and volume for that to happen.
Okay. Councilor, we share that.
I just got one more follow-up on that. So yes, we've broken the same shaft twice on one RBC, but we're using it like a cement mixer, where we have too many solids in there, which is why he wants to settle it out. So you shouldn't have shafts breaking on RBCs. So when you say, oh, this thing went down and it's out of commission, that's our fault. It's the way it was designed so that we have too much sludge and it's acting like a cement mixer, not like a water mill. So just so that we have an understanding, when we take the sludge out of this and we are only churning water like we're supposed to be doing, we won't be putting the stress and torque on the shaft, which is why they break. So, and when we break a shaft, maybe just put a whole new unit in instead of repairing a shaft, which is what we did the first time. And I'm not too sure what we did the second time, but we should have just dropped in a whole new unit. But just for some context on that, we shouldn't be snapping shafts.
Nope, I like that analogy, cement mixer. Okay, let's hear from SEMA Plus now.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to ask Graham to come to the podium. Thank you, Brent.
Thanks, Councilor Ortiz, and thanks, Council, for inviting me to speak. Sorry, my mic works there. So I'll give a quick overview of our study. Maybe just to preface a little bit about our scope and how we came in. Obviously, there was a lot of preceding work. Our scope was really to look at a few of the options that were in front of council and that Director Ortiz had highlighted, and we looked at them independently in terms of how they were in terms of their suitability. Starting out, the first thing we had was a sampling and performance review. So we wanted to get a sense of how was the plant working right now. We had a lot of historical data. We wanted to get a really in-depth picture of what does the treatment plant look like last spring, and realizing we did have to contend with a failure happening during part of this, but it was still very useful. There had been a request to look at facility optimization because that was a key point of discussion. Could we fix, could we operate better what we have, so possible performance improvements. Review of the existing facility capacities. That's like a front to back review of how big are all the individual process units. That's not just the RBC, the filters, clarifiers, all those sorts of things. And then also looking at what RVA had in terms of their extended air, and then also Towards the end of our study, we began looking at what river birch was proposing as well as some capital changes there. So maybe next slide. So we began looking at the overall RBC capacity. So that would be concentrations and loads. That's what goes into sizing equipment. We looked at the loading to the RBC treatment media. Typically, RBCs are sized based on the amount of kilograms of organics. You kind of convert the liquid wastewater to the mass, basically, in terms of how much is loading onto that media to be able to treat. One thing we focused in on, because you see non-compliance during winter, was the effect of temperature. Often for treatment systems, particularly RBCs, you get one kind of textbook number for all year round, but cold weather is harder to operate, so we did look at that. And then we also looked at obviously the other treatment processes. So some of the resources we had at our disposal, the Ministry of the Environment has guidelines, so that's the benchmark kind of minimum standard. There are design texts that we use. Part of our team, we have a fellow, Dr. Bradley Young. He teaches at the University of Ottawa and was involved in looking at this, so we used some of his materials that also drew on some US Water Environment Federation standards as well. So next slide there. So basically in terms of loading, yes, the treatment system was sized to an appropriate standard by the MECP standards back in 2012. The one sort of interesting point we were looking at was how do these relate to what we're actually seeing? So the standards that are published, they're in a 2008 guideline. Really, they come back from about 1984 when the US EPA was doing some work on RBC technology development, and we started to look a little bit more at sort of what would the actual calculated temperature affect. So we did sort of to Kevin's point about solids removal. We looked at the primary clarifier, and we looked actually at the tanks, because the RBCs have a little metal tank almost that sits on top of the clarifier where it stores water, and those had storage times that were less than what we would want to see. Really, I think the more interesting point was when we started to look at the effect of temperature. There are ways of estimating performance if you take into account cold weather, and what you could see in that graph there is that we had sort of modeled some performance, which is the light green bars, and then we looked at the actual performance that you were seeing during those same periods. These are just averaged years over the last two or 3 years. And we can see there's pretty good agreement in terms of both summer and winter. Winter, we were maybe a bit more pessimistic, and it shows that you're able to treat pretty well when it's warm, and when it's cold, it's not working very well. And what I'm focusing on here is the ammonia removal, because really that's what you're principally out of compliance for. It's the ability to take ammonia and convert it to nitrate and then discharge. So you can see the right-hand bars for 825. Obviously, we don't have real world data because we're not at that flow rate, but it shows things getting worse. And I don't mention it here, but really, for us to take the same approach and go to figure out how big this would need to be, we need to be about double what we have to treat now, and about 4 times what we need to be to treat in the future at the rated capacity. So that was really the main takeaway from that exercise. Next slide. So I mentioned looking at steps to improve performance. Optimization was one of the key objectives we had when we started this work. We tried, really the only substantive change we gave an attempt to was looking at possibly better recirculation. Sometimes recirculation can help even out the flows because this treatment plant's fed by a pump station that turns on and off. So we looked at having faster recirculation to see if that would affect things. It really didn't work terribly well. We didn't see any particular improvement in performance. So that was not really anything we could identify to change, and we didn't identify for sampling anything chemical. So the alkalinity or balances of nutrients. Sometimes with wastewater, if the nutrients aren't right, things won't treat. In this case, the water should be treatable, so we didn't really see any changes that were operational or pre-treatment that we could make that way. I know I'm coming after Kevin, but we did have a look at River Birch's upgrades, and we did work closely with them in terms of developing these. They came up with their solutions independently, but we did look at the plant together and have some meetings. what we did, as I mentioned there, we had a site walk together, we looked at us operating data, they saw the same operating data that we collected, so we sent our sampling results to them, and then looked at their memo. Kevin's spoken to this a little bit, but his changes are to look at modifying the primary clarifier inlet, so you basically have the inlet come in closer to where it goes into the RBC, so there's more time to settle. Having a tank in front, so that's additional settling, that's your kind of septic tank. And then the retrofit to the BBR, that would be what he's talking about in terms of phase 2, or Rich is talking about in terms of phase 2. So we can go to the next slide as well. Just a little graphical overview, and apologies to Riverbridge, I didn't take this out of their report. But I thought maybe just illustratively, it makes a little bit of sense to look at. This is, I think, the phase 2 layout, so it's showing the tank and the empty EQ/empty tank conversion and what that would look like. Fundamentally, SEMA believes that you are removing organics. Removing organics is a good thing. You're going to take load away from the RBC. Where we have maybe a bit of a professional disagreement is on the amount of area that you need to actually get ammonia out using an RBC. We looked, and I looked at, if we did this, how much space we really need using the assumptions we did in that model I was showing you to get ammonia down to stay in compliance, which is the main thing we're out of compliance for, and we don't feel that this would really cut it. So we think that you would still have a fairly significant risk of non-compliance for ammonia, even if you did this, at which point, now we've made a change and there's still compliance issues. So that's something that, obviously we can't predict the future in terms of how things would actually run, but that's the risk that we identified through this review. Obviously, actual construction costs, and then what the timing would be for MECP approvals of anything that is actually undertaken here, because it would be an ECA amendment. There's a technical, physical change to the plant, so we'll go through a full technical review. Those are other things that are uncertain. Next slide. So we did also look at the RVA design. We had a look at the preliminary design reports, as well as the final plans that were submitted and approved. In general, our experience, and we've experienced in doing quite a bit of new plant construction and retrofits, is extended aeration is a very established process. If you look at most municipalities that have larger plants or any mechanical treatment, that's often what they're doing in terms of their treatment technology. There are elements of what you have right now that are good to reuse. So you have secondary clarifiers with UV dissolution, tertiary sand filtration, but are all maintained, as well as the building they're in. So you retain some asset value there. We want to speak to Headworks. I know that's been something that's been of interest in terms of its value for extended aeration. Our feeling is that any process benefits from proper screening. If you let things through, it's a question of not if but when things will break, and it really is beneficial to have. It can be costly and unpredictable when you do have these failures, if you don't have the ability to remove basically foreign material from coming in. So we thought that was a useful thing. And I think that may be my last slide there, Mark.
Yep.
Oh, conclusions. There we go.
Geez, I only need to see the deputy mayor once, 6 times. 6 times too many.
Oh, I've got it printed out too, so.
There you go. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can just go ahead. If everybody's
go
put
ahead.
the slides on there.
Yeah, we all have.
But basically, conclusions. We understand, or we feel the RBCs were under designed. I don't want to point a finger at VM Ross. They followed appropriate design standards. I think it's that we're asking a lot of this plant because of where we are in 2025 and the limits that the MECP imposes on us. And there's also some inherent susceptibility to the RBC technology. The wastewater strength is a bit stronger than assumed, but we're still within what the plant was designed to treat. I mentioned that the insufficient surface area, so it's our opinion. You need twice the shaft area for current and 4 times for future, and it doesn't really change if you do some pre-treatment. You might be able to get done a little bit, but it's not going to take that vulnerability away in our opinion. And we also, to tie back to the extended area, we feel it's an appropriate technology to meet compliance requirements. Obviously, there's challenges with any retrofit, but we feel that they're being addressed. And you know, the river birch modifications, they're beneficial. They remove organics. We have some reservations about their ability to confidently put you in compliance. So that's where I'll leave it for now. Director Ortiz will come back to you.
Yep. Did you, before we go to questions, do you want to follow up or add anything, Director Ortiz?
I have nothing to add to that. I have a few slides after
Okay.
Seema's.
Right.
Maybe I see Councillor Derbyshire is looking.
Councillor Derbyshire.
So my question would be, we brought River Birch back in, or somebody did, whether it was the municipality or yourselves, right? Thinking they are an expert on RBCs. And now we're going to say we don't agree with what these experts have said, and that's not gonna work. Why did we bring them in then? If we already had our opinion and we knew that the shaft wasn't gonna cover, then why did we bring them back again for the third time to basically tell them your system doesn't work and we don't want to use it? To me, it seems like it's a pretty big slap in their professional face when they are considered experts on this and you have used them before with other situations, right? But yet here they come back, they give a thing, they say they can do it, they tell you can do it, and we say, or actually not we, you say, no they can't, and this system doesn't work. So I don't quite understand the reason that this was done to them as a group as a whole. You know, to me, I just don't see why we would do something like that if we already had a foregone conclusion that it doesn't matter how much, we need bigger RBCs.
I can chime in and kind of respond to that quickly. So I did reach out to River Birch myself and ask for input. And it's important to note, I guess, the different aspects of the design and construction world. So consulting engineers are registered from the PEO. SEMA Plus is a consulting engineer, and then they have a C of A in order to practice engineering. And River Birch has a very specific niche in RBCs, and that's why they were brought in as any technical supplier with a special niche in that area, and they were brought in to support the.
My point exactly. Do you have a special niche in RBCs? No, do you?
Yeah, Councillor.
But listen, he's going off about we have a special. No, I mean.
Councillor.
I'm getting. My point is.
No.
He's telling us he has a special interest. Does he?
No.
Does he? But we bring RBC in, who we admit are a special interest group, and then deny them.
Your question got answered. We're going to move on.
Didn't get answered.
Councillor Wilsey.
So to SEMA Plus, is there anything in the interim solution presented by the other consultant that would prevent us from changing to extended aeration at the end of that? So I guess where I'm going with that, my thought is maybe the best way forward for now is we know that the extended aeration conversion that's over 10 million, I'm not going to throw a number on it now, but we know that that's going to take approximately 2 years. We know our EA is also going to take approximately 2 years, but we have a solution that will improve operation, or is presented to improve operation, and potentially get us within compliance within about a year. That's going to cost about $1 million. If we go forward with that, are there any changes in that are going to prevent us from going to extended aeration if the EA says that we can stay here and we can stay on this site, and then maybe we build the plant 3 times the size of what we have? What's the downfalls of doing that? Just, I'm looking at the timelines, I'm thinking the extended aeration conversion is going to take almost as long as it will to finish the EA. So if it's not going to be done until we're done the EA and we find out that the EA already tells us we have to be 3 times the size. So I guess the question is, to bring it down, is there any drawback to doing the 1 million to try to get into compliance the best we can while we wait for the EA to be completed in 2 years?
Director Ortiz, do you want to take that, or
Yeah.
should I? I would say it really is an approvals question, and I think maybe Director Ortiz can speak to that one if he's.
I apologize, I was trying to get the laptop working in this case, so maybe I could ask you.
Sorry, I'll ask that again. So a little bit more succinct because everyone else has heard it. If we were to go forward with the River Birch's recommendation and do at least phase 1 and into phase 2 to get us closer to compliance or in compliance, is there anything if we, by putting those solutions forward, that would prevent us from going to extended aeration after the EA is completed? I think everyone in this room, including the consultants, agrees that the River Birch solution is temporary. It's going to get us through the next little bit, get us back into compliance. It's not a long-term solution. Long-term solution is likely going to be EA. If you look at any plant that's 2,000 to 3,000, it's using IFIS or one of the other systems that are in here, or extended aeration or something else for a bigger system. Is there anything in the River Birch that if we were to say, let's go forward with this, let's do our best to get into compliance in the next few months, get this solution in over the next year, and then another year when we're either at or very close to compliance, better than we are now anyways, to the end of that 2 years, is there anything in that solution if we do that is going to stop us from going to extended aeration at this site?
Yeah, thank you for that. So there's nothing that would stop us from going to extended aeration, but it would be a sunk cost. There would not be much of that equipment that would be able to be reused and repurposed for extended aeration.
Yeah, follow
And as a follow-up, if we spend 13 million and then the EA tells us we can't be at this site, then that's also a sunk cost as well, is it not? Because if we'd be doing construction and buildings and geotechnical, that's what most of this is. It's not the equipment that we can remove.
I do have a couple of slides where I do touch on some of that. If there's a potential in the future, if there is a new plant constructed off-site and the existing plant is chosen to be decommissioned, then there would obviously be some cost potentially too. But there's nothing saying that you have to move, you have to change that location, or that the plant would no longer be entitled to operate.
Right. So I guess with that, because we'd be 2 years to the ECA, if we went with extended aeration, we'd spend $13 million and we would not be in compliance until it's done, which is approximately 2 years from now, which is when the ECA is going to be done. I feel like I'm going in circles.
No, I understand. Actually, I understand your question, Frank. Councillor Bell, wait. Can we just wait? Deputy Mayor, did you have a question?
I did, thank you. Can you hear me again?
Yes.
Perfect. So I guess that would be to Director Ortiz. I will just make this, I just want to make the statement again that the expertise of River Birch I accept and I value it. The expertise of SEMA Plus and your engineers and the work they did, I accept and I find value in it. And similarly, the expertise that the Powell Group brings to the room are all very valued for me, and all of this is like exactly what we need in front of us. My question to Director Ortiz is, if a new plant, open aeration plant, was, well not new, but if we change to open aeration on the current site, is it scalable? So if the new plant would be for 825, in 2 years' time, if we're allowed to go to 2348 or greater cubic meters per day, is that scalable up? Or how do we move from 825 to, it looks like 2348 is the number that staff have right now. How do we do that? And how does that work? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, the short answer, it is scalable, scalable up to a larger capacity. 2348 is possible. It would require additional infrastructure, so additional tankage, aeration tanks. I believe under that amount, the headworks facility would be large enough to accommodate that equipment. So that expense would be entirely sized appropriately for that capacity. Going forward even further, if we needed to go beyond that 2348, there are options again on the existing perimeter of the site, but in general it would require additional tankage and additional infrastructure.
Do you have a follow-up, Deputy Mayor?
I do, thank you, Your Worship. So, gamble we're taking is that an ECA, or an EC that we're doing at the same time to increase capacity, comes out and says, no, you can't be at this site. That seems to be the gamble. And that's been weighing heavily on my mind throughout this entire process.
Yeah, thank you. And for the answer to that question, I think I might actually lean on our consultant, RVA Anderson, so John Terrell. We don't know what the requirements are going to be from the MECP in terms of the expansion beyond A25. We have to go through the EA process to and finish the ACS, the Assimilative Capacity Study, to do that. I'll say that if the most restrictive, if they take the most restrictive approach and don't allow any additional loading onto the stream and the watercourse, we would have to look at different technology. So more robust technology which would allow us to increase capacity, increase flow rate, without increasing the loading onto the receiving water body. So if it's okay with council, I'll maybe ask.
Councilor Hayes can turn it over to.
So just when you say that, that means we would switch technologies again from extended aeration to something else to stay on that site.
Possibility, I think the word you used.
The possibility,
If
yes.
they don't let us dump more into the,
Yeah.
you're right. So we would be ripping out our $13 million job.
I'd like to ask Mr. John Terrell to respond to that.
Thank you, through the mayor. If you go back and take a look at the master plan, we presented the three options in the wastewater master plan. We did show a figure of an one of the options being expansion on the site, 4348 cubic meters a day. So you are able to expand a site. When you talk about treatment technologies, there's not one treatment technologies. The treatment is a series of steps. So when you put a headworks in on a site, that headworks or an expanded version of it will always be there. Then there'll be other separate phases for treating the liquid, turning the organics and getting rid of the nutrients, and then you'll have the disinfection at the end. So you'll be expanding all those different components. So basically, what if you want to use the existing site can be expanded. Most municipalities, 2010, I did the expansion of Kamoka wastewater plant. They did an EA for that expansion. They decided to stay on the site there. Ilderson stays on the same site. Chances are, most, not presupposing anything, but generally, once you've picked a site, if the site's sufficient in size, which your current site is, you can expand that site. And I think you can expand that site well beyond 2348. However, that is a decision that council has to make, and the EA is going to give you options. It's not going to tell you what to do. You as the council will decide what to do based on those options. So, but certainly looking at the plant can expand. I just wanted one comment to say, during the construction process, if you do choose to expand or upgrade the plant using extended aeration, the intent is to keep the operations of that plant going while the construction is being undertaken. So it won't get any worse than it is now, I guess is the best way to say it, because we will keep within the contract. The contractor is responsible to keep the flows going through the plant. There'll be staging plans to bring things online, to turn things on and off. There'll be very, very restrictive times when we may say to a contractor, yes, you can have no flow for 4 hours or for 8 hours, but that's only there are certain times in the contract. So typically when you go to construction, the ministry is and you're doing it for the net benefit to improve the environment, the ministry is going to give you some grace. Right now, I'm working at the St. Thomas plant, and we're changing out the disinfection system at the very end of the plant. So we actually literally have to take the whole system out and rebuild the chamber. So we've brought in a Trojan mobile unit. Now that's good for most flows, but you know, if they have a heavy rainfall, there's gonna be some bypasses. And, you know, I think the ministry understands that you can't make an omelet breaking an egg or two. And that's something that, once you get into construction, that risk is shared between the contractor and the owner, and the ministry acknowledges it. So if that was a concern for any sort of expansion, that really shouldn't be a concern. That's just standard practice.
John, I think there's a couple of questions. Councillor Wilsey had his hand up first, Councillor. Then Councillor Derbyshire, and then Councillor Cullen. Greg?
And I guess that comes back to what we saw in the Plus report, where it said that if one of the RBCs goes down, there's no redundancy. So what I don't understand is, if we're changing technology, we have to take the RBC out, we have to change to extended duration in that tank, which means we have to, the blowers and everything outside of the tank, they can be installed. But if we're doing cement work and we have to install pipes and we have to install blowers and things in the bottom of the tank, you can't do cement work in 4 hours. Like, there's no way you can do cement work and you can put in tanks and make it watertight again in 4 hours and drain it down. And we also heard that if we're only down to half capacity, if we do that. So it's, I guess the two statements between you and the other consultant, they conflict, and I need to understand which one is.
I think the issue with construction is you have 3 tanks and you're using 2 right now. So probably what we'll look at doing is we'll look at building the empty one will be converted first to an aeration system that can be brought into operation or temporary operation. Those will be bypassed there, potentially that, and one of the RBCs will be kept in service, and then we'll work on the other one and then switch. That's sort of how you'd go about doing it. So that's how you would do it when we are looking at converting to aeration. So we're not doing all tanks at once. We're going to do one at a time, probably starting with. I mean, it's up to the contractor in terms of how they want to sequence stuff, but generally, I'm sure they would start with the empty one first.
Okay, and Councillor Derbyshire, then Councillor Cullen.
So we've heard.
Microphone there.
We've heard 3 different times tonight that there is a different solution for us to stay on the exact footprint we're on up to 2,300. But it takes us doing an EA and a Schedule C. Okay, so if that is our goal and our game plan, then why are we not taking the simple, cheap route of river birch to get us to where we figure out if we can be there, and they say we can, then we're going to use whatever new technology you guys say. But how are we going to use that new technology and then have to justify to the people we're ripping out your $13 million open aeration, and because we need to go to whatever this new format is that isn't the same thing. Like, I think I understand you guys want to do this and this is the easiest way for everyone to do it, but it's not the most cost-effective way for the taxpayer to have this done. Take 2 years and to get the EA done and figure out what is going on with this place. That's the best thing. Spend the least amount of money to get these things compliant. You've all said there's better ways that we can still do it on the footprint, but yet we're going to blow a lot of money to stay right here where we are now. I don't understand.
That one for Tuesday night. Tuesday night we'll make the decision. Tuesday night's when it's going to be.
It's probably already made. It's a foregone conclusion here. I mean, every report has been against keeping river birch.
Councillor Pellequin.
Thank you. So, I keep hearing comments about that the money will be wasted and stuff, but I just want to make sure my understanding is correct. If we did flip to open aeration and eventually Melbridges grew to the size that we outgrew that site, or the Environment Ministry said you can't expand on that site, we could forever operate that sewage at 825 capacity. Because the most expensive part about moving to a different site is going to be repiping the roads to get to where you need to be. Right now, the stuff that's hooked up flows to that site, and we could forever operate that site at 825, and if a second site was so desired, we could do that as well. We don't necessarily have to say you're going to move it all.
Yeah, that's correct. If, there's nothing that's gonna force the municipality to relocate the plant and abandon the 825 cubic meter per day rated capacity we have, and any investment that we make currently into the plant.
Councilor Palmetto, I see you there, Councilor, he's going.
I just want to make a comment on that.
No, let him finish. Yeah, then we'll go to you.
Also, in terms of the site, you know, in other discussions, we've had talked about the need to move the works yard. The transfer station could also be moved, which would allow us more space on the site to expand, to provide extra cells and not impact the community.
Absolutely, yes.
There you go, Councilor. Then I want to ask you a question if you don't mind.
Perfect. I just want to say, if we do move, and if you were to move, you would pick somewhere that's probably way downhill so that we gravity feed and get rid of as many pumps as we possibly can. Now, no one is talking about the dump because this wasn't included in this here, but it is all one site and it all goes into the same stream. So at some point that is going to play a factor in what we're doing. So there's a lot of factors in this thing. It's not just, you know, the bottom line of this and that. Yes, we can operate that thing for as long as it will operate at that money. So, but remember this, 825, we already paid for it once. We're just not utilizing it right.
Okay, I don't want to debate amongst councilors, so if you want to follow up with something, then Councilor Pammer has.
I have a different point that relates to what Councilor Pammer was talking about earlier.
Okay, go ahead.
Which had to do with the timing. So, Councilor Pammer was asking about the developments that have not yet been built and the capacity. So, if we went ahead with the approvals that we already have and switched to open aeration, the reality is that open aeration will be built by the time that those subdivisions are ready to come online, because even the Westdell subdivision would have to wait for us to rebuild Park House before it can connect, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Starting construction or tendering this year would allow us to ensure we had 825 and rated capacity to satisfy everything that we've fully committed to.
And if we went with option 1 for River Birch, that would still maintain us at the 425 or whatever we're at now and not provide us the excess rated capacity that's at the plant but not currently being reached.
We definitely wouldn't be able to service additional growth and additional development. And we would, I think as Siema mentioned, and Kevin can comment as well, but we wouldn't know whether we would be able to maintain compliance today until we do it. So we would have to do it and hope that it works, and it may work, in which case we'd be good for today. But we know that the first stage would not allow us or not provide any real ability to service future growth or any growth today.
Okay, Councilor Pammer is patient with a question.
Yeah, I just have to, it's just a comment or maybe a question, maybe River's much to answer, but I find it troublesome that I hear a lot of, it might work. You want us to spend $1.5 million and it might work? I mean, if I'm gonna hire a plumber to fix my plumbing and he quotes me $1,000, I assume it's gonna run when I pay him the $1,000. So is this just an industry thing? Something about sewage treatment I don't understand? I'm sorry, but I have to ask the question. If you could confidently tell me, if we gave you $1.5 million, this thing's gonna work, and if we do phase 2, we'll get up to 825, that changes how we look at this whole proposal, changes how I look at the whole proposal. No, I've heard a lot of it might.
Councilor,
So can someone clarify that for me about how,
She's
that's what I'm
gonna ask the
asking.
same question.
I'm asking River Birch. Will you guarantee that this is gonna get us compliant, and phase 1 will get us to 425 and hold us there, and phase 2 will get us to 825 and keep us there, so that we can continue with the development that's on the books and the development that the community is looking for?
Okay, well, the first phase was the simple phase. You know, we have about 400,000 for that. That is compliant at basic existing existing flows. One thing, guarantees cost money. If you want an absolute guarantee, you're gonna pay for it.
What do you mean?
It's
don't know
not
what
gonna
that
be the simplest solution. You know, it would be oversized. If you want an absolute guarantee, yes, we can give you an absolute guarantee, but not at the same cost. So there is a minor amount of risk. The calculations show that we can do this. Okay? It's also, we're not operating the plant, so the operations can have an effect on it as well. Again, this all comes into the cost. This is a low cost option.
But if it doesn't,
It
But
it
it
will,
doesn't
it
work.
will work to some, it will work, okay? Absolute, it will work to the existing flows, yes.
Okay, so I just have thought, I was gonna ask, thank you for that, mine was for somebody on your solution, and again, I'm not picking on you, I don't know if that's right, I just doing my due diligence. The possibility of poor ammonia removal, whether it's significant or minor, there's still that risk. Is there a plan to address that? Because that's a compliance issue again.
Yes, there is. And we did not see SEMA's report until actually it was issued.
Okay,
And in what we've revised, there is a contingency for additional ammonia removal.
right, and can you remind me, because.
It's in section 10
Right,
of the
what is
revised.
that, what is that number again?
It's $500,000, and that's at the 825. If it's needed, that can be added for a very substantial amount of ammonia removal.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate
Okay.
it. Sorry, go ahead, Councilor Wilsey, then we'll move on.
So, actually, I don't even wanna talk about the technology, I wanna talk about the funds and the money for a minute, because that's kind of my strong
Okay,
point.
could we do this, because I noticed, and because I want to hear it too, I think it's in option, why don't we let the director go through his options, because right there at the very top is cost, so then we can go to that.
Well, yeah, except it's just cost in general.
Okay, go ahead, yep.
It's not to any specific
Okay.
solution. So I spent some time over the last couple of weeks looking at the most recent reserve report that was available to council. And then I looked at that together with the water and the wastewater. And from what I looked at is we had between $5 to $7 million allocated to spend on Mount Bridges water and wastewater. Over the 2026 and 2027 calendar years, we had an extra 5.4 was added. So that got us up to about 11-ish million available to spend till the end of 2028 for this project. Past 2028, there was no additional money in our water and water rates that we approved. So with that being said, we have 11 million there. If we were to go with a solution that's less than 11 million, we could actually, just for two different options, if we decide to go forward with the 13 to 15 million, let's say it's 13, we're $2 million short of that in reserves. We're also $2 million short of our EA and a few other things that we'd have to do. If we went for the other option and we did the 1.5 and then the EA, that's only 3 million. That leaves us with $7 to $8 million that we can put towards the overage and cover the overage of the Strathroy wastewater plant without actually increasing water and wastewater rates for these projects. So that's just my simple back of the napkin math. It's not as detailed as the director or anyone would do, but my simple math, just want to make sure the council's aware of that part too, is that we don't have the funds to pay for a $13 million
So I've
project.
asked that question to Councilor, and I'm expecting that Tuesday night, Director Dakin will come better able to address the funding questions. So, Director Ortiz, let's,
Yeah, I'll try
We've got two more.
wrap the end up, and just to kind of tail on to Kevin's comments there. What River Birch has done is, they're putting together the best options that they can put together for what, Kevin mentioned was an affordable interim solution. And if the year was 2019, it might be something that we would look at with a different lens than we are today, with the backdrop of the NECP issuing fines and charges potentially, or other means that they can use. So I just wanted to add that to the discussion point. So options and next steps. I'm going to start with next steps quickly. We need to confirm our approach to achieve compliance. We need to respond to the MECP with our approach. We're going to award the Mount Burgess EA RFP. We're going to issue a tender for the upgrades to the Mount Burgess wastewater plant. That's the current plan. Or if council chooses, we can pursue an alternative option to achieve compliance. We're going to develop the wastewater servicing application policy, advance the I&I investigation, develop an unserviced property connection plan for Mount Burgess, and then continue to monitor capacity and development pipeline, and hopefully implement multi-year budgeting and rates and rates. So option one, I'll try to go through this quickly. Again, $13 million is the most recent cost estimates, plus minus 10%. Tariffs might have an issue. The market will do what the market will do. So 13 million is the current cost estimate. New headworks building, screening, grid removals, extended duration. So like what was mentioned today, some of the benefits of the approach is that we have confidence that it's going to work. It's going to work to restore rated capacity to 825, and as close to a guarantee that we can make is that we know it will work. It's going to ensure that we can service previously approved developments. It's going to ensure that we can serve what we've fully committed to already. It's going to enable us to grow in the short term, perhaps up to 5 or 7 years before we need to expand beyond that rated capacity, hopefully a little bit longer. We have an ECA approval in place. We have approval from the ministry in place, and the project is tender ready. We know it's reliable, it's well understood, and it's common in the industry. And there's ability for future expansion on site, and it is scalable with relatively minimal throwaway cost. Drawbacks, it's the most expensive, at least of the two options we're looking at. There is a possibility that there's some costs in 5 or 10 years. If in 10 years we build a new treatment plant somewhere else, and it's a large flagship facility, and there's no need for this plant, there's a possibility that in 5 or 10 years, probably more likely 10 or more, that we would have some costs here. Option two, Kevin has provided some context already. This is the $1.1 million option. I have a 50% plus or minus in here. The scope is to reroute influent piping, a new precast cementation tank, and conversion of the existing tank to MBBR. I think after the presentation was completed, I think Kevin mentioned adding additional MBBR.
There's a potential, yes, to add for nitrification.
So that would be a new tank, more MBBR to what we currently have, and that's not factored into this analysis. So overall, benefits of the approach, definitely lowest cost, and it utilizes the existing infrastructure as much as possible, and we definitely expect that some process efficiency improvement would be expected. The drawbacks, if it doesn't work, there's pretty substantial risks in terms of compliance. We do need an ECA approval for phase 2. We will need a detailed design and detailed costing. So what River Birch has put forward is it's a high-level budgetary cost. It's subject to change through the detailed design process. Longer timelines will increase the likelihood of MECP enforcement or intervention. That could put existing development at risk. The approach is development and the approach is temporary in nature, and we would need permanent works. Possible sunk costs over 1 to 4 years if we can't meet compliance, or if the EA is completed and we decide to build on site. The lack of headworks potentially would cause some operational maintenance issues, and we would still need some form of aeration.
Yep, continue.
I'm continuing. That's my last slide. It is key takeaways. Maybe it's good that it's blank. So I end on a few key takeaways for us. So number one, we need to act and take action to ensure compliance at the plant. The municipality, the MECP requires the municipality to confirm the approach to ensure compliance, and further intervention or enforcement is possible, and the longer we delay it, it becomes increasingly likely. The existing RBCs are not going to achieve compliance the way that they are. alternative, the interim improvements would likely improve treatment, the full extent of which isn't fully clear, and that there is risk that compliance could not be consistently achieved. And we would need a new ECA approval and design and costing for that. Servicing growth is critical. It's a critical priority. However, we are not in dire straits just yet, assuming that we can get a plant into compliance and that we proceed on the EA and servicing allocation policy. And then finally, the preferred solution for future, this is the future EA, the preferred solution for the future wastewater treatment capacity beyond 825, it's going to be identified and evaluated through the EA process. And there will be significant stakeholder consultation as part of that. So that's it for me, and I can answer any further questions.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to thank everybody, Kevin from Riverbirds, John, everybody who contributed to this. This is an important decision. Appreciate it. Anybody have any final questions? Councillor Wilsey.
We have to reply to the MECP letter. Are we making that decision tonight on how we reply to that, or we delayed so that he could respond to the MECP after this meeting? We haven't made any motions or decisions. We've just talked a lot about different things. So I guess my question to the director is, what do you need from us to reply to that letter?
So we would need, ideally I would like eventually an endorsement of the approach from council. At this time, I can ask for a short extension from the MECP to allow the meeting to happen on September 2nd, and perhaps get formal direction from council at that time if council's not prepared to do so today.
It's on the agenda for Tuesday evening, councillor, so we give all the council time to absorb all of this. So I think the director's indicated you'll be seeking a short extension from MECP, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Councillor Coleman and Councillor Derbyshire.
I think when I think when I came into this meeting, I was kind of hoping that we might be word that. The question to me is, I think we need to move on with open aeration, but can we do some of the interim measures in the meantime? That was kind of my question, and from what I think I heard is that we would need ministry approval to do that.
For some of the interim proposals that Riverbirds put forward, specifically the MBBR would definitely require an ECA approval from the MECP. The smaller process improvement with process piping change, I believe we could do that without an ECA amendment because there's no change to the process. I want to double check on that, but I believe we could do that without ministry approval.
Councillor Derbyshire.
So Tuesday night, when this is all brought back up, are we just making a decision and everyone's supposed to know what they're doing, or is that where you're gonna have the debate about it?
That's where we're going to discuss what we're going to do. So the expectation is people will absorb all of this and come ready to make a decision.
When we come to the decision, we're down to, if nobody cares about money, right? Your option would be do what we're going to do. Move forward with open aeration. Hopefully we can stay on the site. On the other side of it, you have, hopefully we get compliant, right? And then we see where we can be with the EA. So the difference is, one takes us 2 years to get there to 825 to guarantee we can be there, which at that point will then tell us whether we're able to stay there, be there, what we need to do, what system we need to use. The EA will be done in 2 years. We'll essentially have a plant ready to cut a ribbon in 2 years. Or you can take a gamble, which at this point, what is it, 2.2 million added up now if we put it all together? 2.5? So 2.5 million on getting to 825, being compliant for that same 5 to 7 years. Because If 825 buys us 5 to 7 years with open aeration, then it has to buy us the same amount of time because 825 is 825. So you're essentially down to what do you want to gamble on? Do you want to gamble on the fact that River Birch can get you compliant for 825? Or do you want to gamble on we can stay here and that we don't have to change the system to be here? So one's a $2.5 million gamble, one's a $13 million gamble. It's taxpayers' dollars, you get to decide next Tuesday.
Just to clarify, it's ratepayers.
Well, at some point it's gonna be taxed because we're probably gonna have to borrow, which will eat into our credit.
Okay, with that being said, no more questions. There are a few motions. First motion is receive the report EPW 2025, Mount Bridges wastewater treatment facility update, just for information. So motion to receive that report. Councillor Pammer, Councillor Pelkman, all in favor. That motion carried. Next report is council received the submission of the Powell Group and attach addendum from Berta Kirchner for information. So just receiving that for information. Councillor Wilsey, second by Councillor Derbyshire. All in favor? That motion carries. Last motion is the August 25th, 2025 strategic priorities meeting adjourned at 6:26 p.m. Councillor Pelkman, second by Councillor Derbyshire. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. Thank the gallery for your patience.